Welcome to Growth Colony, Australia's B2B growth podcast. I'm Alex Hipwell. Each episode, we bring you B2B founders, CMOs, marketing, and sales leaders to find out what makes them successful and what's behind their failures. Let's dive right into today's episode.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode. I'm Shahin Hoda with X-Growth and today I'm talking to David Gottlieb, Director of Advertising for APAC at Microsoft, about how COVID has changed our behavior when it comes to using search engines, what are the trends that have emerged, and what does all of this mean for marketers. David has an amazing background and his experience working at eBay, and now Microsoft has taken him across the globe from Sydney to Dublin to Vancouver to Seattle to San Jose, and now back in Sydney. I mean, you name a major hub and he's been there and worked there. And now he's leading the team delivering Microsoft advertising monetization strategy, marketing and insights in APAC. David, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shahin. This is fantastic. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure having you. Let's start high level, okay? Let's go and start high level. What are some of the immediate changes that you and the team at Microsoft saw in the early days of the pandemic when it came to search engine and you know what people were searching and how people were interacting with the beast, with the engine?
Yeah, sure. Now, that's a great question. I'll probably key off one word that you said there, which was team. For me and for the team that I work with and the direct group, we really were focused on the importance of how we were going to work to empower others every day. And so that meant that we really had to dial in on the importance of staying connected, the importance of the changes that we all had to make and what we had to adapt in terms of how we worked every day. And, for that, it meant that we had to keep it kind of organic. You couldn't get too stale in terms of any one approach, in terms of staying connected. And, making sure that things like well-being just became part of the normal conversation that we had, making sure that I was modeling certain behaviors, like how do I step away at the appropriate time and not get consumed being in front of a computer all day and then all night, and kind of manage that balance and show that to the team. So definitely, when the pandemic hit, there was definitely that focus on the team first and foremost, so that we could do our best work for our clients and our partners, both internally and externally within the Microsoft advertising family. And so then, maybe going a little bit broader than that to the consumer trends that we saw. Obviously, Microsoft advertising is the advertising platform that enables clients and brands to reach Bing, and we also power a couple of other search engines like Kosher and Yahoo. And for us, what we really saw was just how important search is to a lot of people. And so the consumer trends, actually, we saw a shift in the way that people were searching, an increase in terms of the number of desktop searches. And for us at Microsoft Advertising, where a lot of users are using Windows 10 computers on their PCs, that's a great thing in terms of sort of seeing the increase in terms of desktop searches. But it also meant that people were, less mobile. They weren't doing their, searches on their phones during their commute, that sort of stuff. And so we really did what we could to kind of understand the types of things that people were searching for while there was, as there's been that increase in terms of desktop searching. And some of those, maybe if I just go to the third part, then the changes in terms of what people were searching for, we really saw things like online groceries. I mean, if you think about what you were searching for right at the start of the pandemic,
Toilet papers. That was me. Toilet papers. I was the guy at the Coles.
We definitely saw an increase in terms of searches for toilet papers. Yes, the online grocery searches were up quite a bit, as well as delivery services in general, food delivery services. And it kind of went through different waves or cycles through the pandemic as people kind of went through their own personal hierarchy of needs. And so, once people had their food in place, then they were focused on their work from home situation. And so we saw a lot of queries around, broadband service providers, or definitely the work from home questions. And then underpinning all of this was a huge increase in terms of news and information that people were looking for about COVID. And Bing actually responded by creating a Bing tracker that was launched and really went through kind of like a very agile approach in terms of the way that it was adapting to feed in more information from trusted sources and help people understand, where cases were being located and how infection prevention could occur, as well as just surfacing different sort of information around hotspots, that sort of stuff. And it still is a work in progress today in terms of providing people with information that they care about reading.
Yeah, it's fascinating the changes that we saw in such a short period of time. But compared to those early days of COVID, how does today compare? Like, what are you seeing today in terms of like user behavior on with search and their queries?
Yeah, we see a kind of a process of where it's gone from responding, so kind of the toilet paper query, to people kind of getting to a place of rebounding. So adapting to a new way of doing things, kind of like that rebound or reimagine phase is sort of where we think we're at now, and what we're seeing in terms of searches. And it's interesting to sort of see, or to contrast maybe travel. Travel is down, obviously, in terms of global travel. None of us are traveling, but definitely local searches, opportunities to travel within a state, things like that are seeing sort of a strong increase, as well as retail. E-commerce has just massively accelerated during this time. And we really do see that COVID brought about a kind of an e-commerce, or brought really e-commerce to the forefront for many Australians. And I was looking at, I was listening rather, and looking at some of the work that the team had put together for a webinar that they ran on retail. And there was some industry data there about just how, the search behavior as well as online trends had changed. And, just to quote some numbers here, that 73% of Australians are now shopping online as to before. 86% of Australians are increasing the frequency of their online shopping and avoiding going in store. And 50% of people are buying products that they never bought online previously. And I think that, Australia had a long way to go pre-COVID in terms of its online or e-commerce environment. It was really pretty nascent, and it really just has been brought to the forefront, as I said, for a lot of Australians. And I think that that's a trend that we saw or we're seeing, and I think we'll continue to see.
That is so cool. That I always not complain, but I compared some of the delivery capabilities in some of the other countries in Europe and in the US, and how quickly you could potentially get something from an online shopping. And I feel like that has become a forefront focus now here in Australia, and we're going to see more and more of it, of getting faster and faster delivery. So I am looking forward to that. Well,
I think that you see, certain retailers promoting things like pick up or click and collect. And I think that's got a really strong value proposition as well, where it cuts out time in the day, but it also allows people to go out. Or if people are indeed starting commuting again or anything like that, it just means that they're able to get time back in their day. I think that it's really interesting to watch the whole kind of acceptance, and then, people just valuing their time differently. And I think that will be a big driver. And one thing I didn't mention was the push towards, with working from home, around skills and education. We really saw, with the broader Microsoft family, including LinkedIn, very much a push towards what people could do in terms of increasing their skills, online learning, that sort of stuff. And I think that's an ongoing interest that we'll probably see as online learning becomes more and more the norm, or people are, again, comfortable with it as it's gone through a bit of a disruption, that we'll see people kind of comfortable using platforms like LinkedIn Learning to increase their skills and knowledge beyond perhaps how they approached, or indeed just things like remote working or working from home, how they do that in the most efficient way possible.
That is so cool. And I had this question for myself of how is education going to change? I know there are a certain number of thought leaders, that some of them we both might know, like Prof. Scott Galloway, that have very strong opinions of how things change. But so, like, what can you give any more details on, like, what are some of the shifts that you're seeing in the educational space from professionals and people who want to get trained?
Yeah, Microsoft and LinkedIn released an entire skilling initiative, and it's easy enough to search on if you open up Bing and type, Microsoft Skills Initiative. what it really highlighted was there were 7 or 8, and I can't remember the exact number, 7 or 8 different industries that really were going to be rising to the forefront as we kind of go into this reimagined world. Certainly things like digital advertising, understanding, kind of the how we power things through the cloud, all the kind of technology, things that are at the forefront in terms of technology. Those areas were really the most popular ones. But I think there's also a balance of that with doing it in a way that you understand empathy and how people work together in an environment where we are not necessarily seeing each other on a day-to-day basis, and how you kind of manage through that is kind of the really important stuff. And I think they're the things that through the skilling initiative, sort of showing that there's value, not just in the technical, but also that personal aspect. And then more broadly, things that can be done around education, around areas like inclusivity, and some of the social injustice issues that we've seen through the last 6 to 12 months, or indeed much longer in reality, and really opening up people to the notion of what their own circumstance might be in terms of privilege, and what that really means in terms of other people, and how things like bias and other things are preventing us sometimes from seeing the situation that some people are in.
Do you ever find yourself stuck with a B2B problem? Need a second opinion on your next campaign? Or looking for some feedback on that piece of MarTech you're thinking to purchase? Well, that's why we created the Growth Colony Slack channel. This Slack channel is like a small dinner party where you get to meet and mingle with B2B professionals, hear what others are doing, and keep up to date with the latest B2B trends and news. You'll also get access to a range of exclusive content from our podcasts, webinars, and events. The best thing about it, it's all free. If this sounds interesting, head over to growthcolony.org/Slack and sign up. That's growthcolony.org/Slack.
What was one thing that really surprised you when you were looking at this, let's call it COVID data, right? And trends? Like, what was that one thing that you're like, really?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. The one thing that it probably shouldn't have surprised me, but I thought it was very interesting, was how consistent some of these trends were globally. Typically we do see a lot of similarities in terms of the way that people do search for things. But what we really were able to see in waves as we went into the pandemic period was really looking at markets like Italy, for example, that was kind of, if you can think all the way back to that time, they were sort of, suffering first, and then a couple of weeks later it was the US. And then we sort of followed here in Australia a little bit after that. And we were able to sort of see these patterns emerge and take sort of some of the understanding and really sort of learnings and understand from that. So it was really, I would say it was more of the meta patterns that I found interesting, rather than a specific sort of like search or query that people were doing. I think it was just that, we did see these waves across kind of the entire world of search trends and search behaviors
Unfolding, going through a sequence. It sounds. Was there anything, or even right now, is there anything unique to Australia?
Definitely going back to the online shopping piece, I think it's grown from a fairly small base. And so I think that's why we're really seeing that. And we think that this coming retail period that we're going to go into around the end of this current year will sort of capture, an online shift in terms of behaviors from Australians shopping. I think that certain things that stood out were, some of the early education pieces for how people were going to help with their teaching from home.
Yes.
And those sorts of things. Whether that was specific just to Australia, I don't really, probably not. But again, sort of some of those things that, the coping mechanisms that people had from not just working from home, but educating children from home, and how to kind of manage best through that.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So, I also want to kind of change gear a little bit here and talk about advertising.
Yep.
And, first, maybe let's talk about what this means for PPC, really, and online advertising. Like, what do you think? Do you think this is going to change online advertising in any way?
Definitely. I think that, this just the reduced mobility of, and by that I mean people will spend less time in front of probably their mobile devices. If they're spending more time at home, I believe that will probably be one of the trends that we continue to see. I would say more broadly, we're focused on delivering value to marketers and making meaningful connections to people through what I would say is three key pillars. And this is really how we think about the evolution of advertising. And those three key pillars are around trust, intelligence, and empowering. And with each one of those, trust, we think about privacy and how you have to start with a foundation of trust and helping people to keep connecting with brands, but doing it really in an uncompromised way when it comes to respect for privacy, brand safety, data security, those kind of aspects. And so we really see that as a pillar going forward for the industry. When I said intelligence is that second pillar, it's no joke that we have a lot of data, and that amount of data is only increasing. And I think that, at Microsoft, we feel very well equipped in terms of being able to provide a complete sort of understanding about, we have a huge investment in terms of cloud, massive investments in terms of AI and how to utilize things like machine learning to process through that data, and then how to actually leverage that data as insights and turn those insights into actual marketing-based understanding so that brands, again, can really understand in an intelligent way how to improve things like campaign performance and how to create, more personalized experiences.
Right.
And then that empowering thing is kind of bringing that together. So really just saying, how do we as a platform really help marketers to achieve more and do more with the time that they have available to them, and help them to grow and to really either rebound their business during this period, but to hopefully reimagine it and hopefully grow beyond where they thought they were going to be originally as well.
Yeah, and one of the initiatives that you're working on that note is the Microsoft Audience Network. What is that? What is that all about?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. We it really is twofold in terms of the way that we're thinking about it. But at the core of it, it's an AI-powered audience solution. And so what we really help people to do, or what we're really helping marketers to do, is to connect to the audiences that they want through native placements in brand safe environments. So allowing, through the Microsoft Audience Network, allowing advertisers to reach that highly relevant audience using the Microsoft Advertising Graph. And so the advertising graph is really all the rich consumer understanding that we have through all of the Microsoft assets, being Microsoft News, Outlook, LinkedIn, and others, and really using those signals to help target in terms of a more productive way across the audience that the advertisers or marketers are trying to reach. And when I said twofold, it's now available as an extension of search campaigns. So typically for advertisers that are running search campaigns today, they can extend into that audience network immediately. And then in the coming weeks, we'll actually release it as a standalone audience capability where you can target campaigns or specialized campaigns just in that audience network.
Very impressive. Okay, definitely something to dig deeper in and check out. David, tell me a little bit about voice. Like, what is happening with voice? There was I loved the fact that you said, hey, we're seeing a lot more activity on desktop, right? Not a contrarian view, but it's not a view, it's a fact. It's different than what everybody used to say before COVID, right? Mobile first platform, and you got to take responsiveness and all that stuff. And I think all of that is still important. And I like, but it's also really interesting how COVID is challenging the marketing manifesto that was out there. What about voice? What is happening with voice?
I definitely think voice is here, and I think about it more broadly, probably in terms of digital assistants, and smart speakers are becoming ever more present. There is a lot of announcements about new technologies in that area all the time, and so it's not just limited perhaps to smartphones. I think it's definitely powering those digital assistants, or even things like chatbots, and taking on kind of those going from maybe a more rudimentary thing to an evolved sort of like more engaging personality opportunity there as well, kind of almost like a close friend, if you can think about it. So I think voice is definitely here. We think about it, Microsoft thinks about it in terms of we are gathering, a ton of information, ton of data points through Bing, and then exposing through APIs ways that people are actually able to power some of those experiences. And we call those cognitive services. And so I think about, the world of technology and engagement through voice as just one of the ways that people can have that more natural interaction than perhaps typing on a keyboard seems. And I think that it's vital. We certainly feel like, in terms of accessibility, people that might have a disability and not able to use traditional methods of typing and entering, voice is fantastic. But we also see that it's not just limited to voice. I think that there's things like certainly visual search, and we have making huge investments in visual search. And today, if you want to go and search for an image, and I actually do this all the time, you're actually able to copy and paste an image into the search engine, and it'll search the web for that. And I think it's fantastic if you want to sort of see the source of a chart, or if you have an idea for something and you look for it, and then you can see other things that appear like that. It's great. So we think that disruption is definitely here. Voice-enabled devices, chatbots, digital assistants, and then the Internet of Things more broadly. It will definitely kind of pull all of these technologies together going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I remember years ago, I got, when Microsoft bought Nokia, I got, I think maybe a year or two after that, I got a Microsoft phone, right? And there were things that I liked and there were things that I didn't like, but I loved Cortana. Like when I moved to Siri, I was like, this is dumb. Like Cortana was like way better and way smarter. But now, I wake up with Alexa, and she's right there with a lot of stuff that or it is right there, I guess is the right term, for a lot of stuff that I need to get done. But have you seen any kind of like trends in the Australian market, or that that data is not conclusive right now? Have you seen any numbers around voice or even image visual search?
Not specific numbers, but I think that these are global trends that we're seeing, an evolution of the way that people are interacting with devices and expectations of how they do interact with devices. And maybe back to your comment, I would say that all of this technology is just getting better and better in leaps and bounds. The more data that it has to work with, the more machine learning that happens, and the more the AI system can grow on top of that. Just I think that we'll see ongoing evolution in terms of performance, no matter what the service is. The interesting thing is Cortana is still here because Cortana is still with us. It's integrated as part of Windows 10 and other experiences. I think that it's available through definitely Windows 10, and it's perhaps more of an enterprise focused application now. But it definitely tells me every week how I'm spending my time, and gives me insights in terms of, where I should be spending more time focusing and that sort of stuff. So it's fantastic technology. And I think about things like, and it might be a little bit, it's not so much on voice, but it's just this power that we have of using these technologies to just give us a better balance in life. And even you use My Analytics, which is built into, or the Insights tab that's built into Outlook, and it helps you understand where you're spending your hours in a week, and actually then make suggestions like, hey, you might want some more time to actually focus on your work rather than spending time in meetings. And click that button, and suddenly it made a bunch of time available for me over the coming months. And it was like an absolute win in terms of being able to manage the constant deluge of work as well. So
I love that. Okay, last question that I want to ask, and this is goes back to voice. Do you think, because we're fairly passionate when it comes to B2B, right? And I'm curious how you see voice playing in B2B space, because I personally feel like it has still, compared to in the consumer space, it has a lot to go and there's little uptake in the B2B space for voice. But I also love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could probably grab a whiteboard and spend half an hour, 3 hours together, socially distanced, of course.
Of course.
Kind of brainstorming what we could think of here, because I think that that's the beauty of it, that that it really comes down to the consumer's need, whether B2B or B2C, but at the end of the day, it's a person wanting to do something. And I think that there's so many different applications that just, for Microsoft, we see it as our opportunity to really help technology reach people no matter where they are and what thoughts they have, and equip them with infrastructure to get to realize sort of a dream. I think that the opportunity is, for more personalization and more opportunity for brands and also for B2B environments to kind of understand, at the end of the day, there is somebody looking at something. So how do you help them? How do you do the application that works? So I would say it's more, from my perspective, I probably don't have the answer, but hopefully it can help with the solution. And Microsoft more broadly can help with that solution as well.
Fantastic. Well, David, those are pretty much all the questions that I wanted to ask. Do you think there's something that we should touch on that I didn't bring up?
It would be remiss of me not to encourage everybody to try out Microsoft Advertising, to go to the website and have a look at that, of course.
That's it.
But, what I would really encourage everybody to do is have a look at the latest version of Edge. Edge just was recently rebuilt this year using a new backend, and it works perfectly. It's a great browser. And what I would say is that this last week we just had an announcement around Give with Bing, and Give with Bing is an extension that you can put into the Edge browser, but it's also just through your Microsoft Rewards account that you can set up as a Bing searcher, and it means that for every search you do, you can actually donate to a charity, and there's thousands of charities available, thousands of opportunities to give with Bing, and to do it in a way that you're leveraging an activity that you're doing already. So you might as well.
That's so cool. I mean, I know Microsoft puts a lot of emphasis on social the social elements of business, and it's so cool to see when businesses in general put their money where they claim that they're focusing on. That's an awesome initiative. Well, David, thanks so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and thanks for jumping on the podcast.
Yeah, I really appreciate it as well, Shahin. Thank you very much.
Hey, it's Alex again from X Growth. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode. If you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you take a moment to rate us on Apple Podcasts. It would really help get the word out to other B2B professionals. If you're hungry for more B2B content, make sure to join our Slack channel at growthcolony.org/Slack, where we share the latest B2B news, tactics, tips, and chat about problems we're facing in the B2B space and find solutions together. That's growthcolony.org/Slack. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next episode.